And 3 years and a half, they come up with the idea that the best healthcare is just assisted dying, as the best solution for the sick people, and that is hypocrisy, to say at least. But the solution to the problem that they were introducing into the law is not a solution for suffering. It's the elimination of the sufferer. For instance, in Netherlands, they had no amendment on the law, which was in 2001. And we see that people can die just because they are sick of life in the Netherlands. Not they don't need to have an illness anymore. What's more, they are eliminating now also kids. So it's not, he informed me that it's not called euthanasia because it cannot be called euthanasia because there is no consent.
The Overton window, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept, is shifting towards after birth abortion. Hello, viewers and listeners of Freedom for All's podcast. I'm Atanas, and joining us from Slovenia today is Neic Povirk, founder of the Anchored Voices project, husband and father of 3, fourth child is on the way, and devout Catholic. That's exactly the way they used to introduce Joe Biden back in the day, which Nate reminded me of in a private conversation before this interview. So today we will talk about human life and human dignity. Hello, Nate. Good to see you.
Hello.
Am I missing anything on the short profile that I did of you? Anything you want to add before we jump in?
I wouldn't be compared with Joe Biden, though. That was just a joke. But yeah, I'm a Catholic. I'm a devout Catholic in sense that I am a practicing one. So Joe Biden wasn't really, or has. We don't know if it's past tense. We don't know when during his mandate actually died and someone else was there instead of him. But, definitely that's a lot of my identity, I would say.
Well, and in a sense, as it will become evident to all of our viewers and listeners, that you were in a radically different political and social stance on many issues to Joe Biden. But let's not jump ahead. So Nate, to quickly set the tone of the conversation, let me ask you, 16,500 deaths in Canada in 2024. What number am I quoting? What are we talking about here?
We're talking about euthanasia and assisted suicide. That's the number for 2024. That means how many people, elderly, sick, are eliminated from the Canadian society. That's one of the most common causes of death in Canada. And yes, we were quite engaged in that in Slovenia also last year. At the end of the year, we had a referendum on assisted dying, and luckily and thankfully, we are the first nation on the world that rejected assisted suicide on referendum, and that is a great victory we can celebrate. And we can see that our victory has also inspired some other nations already. We can see that this week actually happened. French Senate has not really rejected, but changed the law on that they did. That the House of Commons, I don't know how to say, Parliamentary Assembly is in French, that already accepted the law, but they changed it, so it has to go to the procedure all over again. And also in the United Kingdom, there is also a bill on the table in House of Lords, and there is quite strong opposition to the case that UK should be one of the another country that permits and promotes poisoning of the sick and elderly as a solution for later years. So yeah, we have a lot to say about it.
It's bizarre, isn't it? The United Kingdom, which is the forefront of liberal progressive agendas, that such a bill is on the table. But let me go back a step, Nate. Why is this important? And you said poisoning the elderly. We're talking about healthcare. What do you mean poisoning the elderly? Healthcare, it means caring for the health of people.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you define human, and if your presumption is that human life is valuable if it's useful, that's the great question about it. And even though they are saying that it's an autonomous decision, people who are elderly and sick, that they feel that they are a burden themselves because everybody is abandoning them in Slovenia, especially from the healthcare providers, because we have a system that is collapsing, and that's actually one of the strong, because the current left-wing government actually the main goal was to fix healthcare. And 3 years and a half, they come up with the idea that the best healthcare is just assisted dying, as the best solution for the sick people, and that is hypocrisy, to say at least. But yeah, there is certainly a way to defend life also at the end, that we value life, we value people that have a lot of things still to give to our society, that this connection between generations is, and we are suffering on other parts of societal changes because we don't listen to those who are a bit more, that they have more wisdom than us. So
Let's focus a little bit on the euphemisms, because it's a painful topic. You use the word hypocrisy. I would add inversion to common sense, because we're talking about healthcare, and there is a word called euthanasia and medical assisted suicide that you mentioned, and there are other similar terms that are used in a package deal there. But in essence, the actual actions that are being used are: poison is given to a person to facilitate, to speed up his dying. So we're talking about murder. We're talking about forcefully making people to die quicker. And it's the same with other euphemisms that are spread nowadays. So we talk about abortion, but in essence, it's killing an unborn child. So a child, regardless whether it's in the womb or outside of the womb, it's a child, it's a baby. So if you kill it within the womb, what's the difference in killing it outside of the womb? And by the way, there is, I don't know if you recall an article from 10 years ago, there was the Overton window. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept. Is shifting towards after birth abortion. I don't know if you've come across the term, but it's madness. So after a baby is born, you can kill it.
Yeah, I mean,
get away with it.
If you control the language, you control the narrative. And it's the same story with gender theory, it's the same story with abortion and with euthanasia. We didn't have euthanasia law, we had help at the end of life bill or something like that, which is, euphemism, and it's effective if people are not listening and thinking what does it mean. And if you don't debunk those lies and those manipulation, I would say that we had a really good campaign in that framing of the question, because we were talking about poisoning, we were talking about killing, and that that was effective by itself, but it's nothing else than killing in reality. Even though they use, like in Canada, they use mate, or they use just shortcut, like to say just like one of the processes, in the healthcare. It's like a pill or something. And yeah, that is a great question, in the sense that we have to change the narrative by using proper language. And we cannot achieve as many things if we bow to their language use. So yeah, it was important for frontline for on the terminology side. And also now they're problematizing the proponents of Slovenian law are problematizing that fact that we use the proper words for the proper actions, and they are complaining about it, that we were the ones who were manipulating with words. Not really. If you change the word killing into dying with dignity, it doesn't change the matter.
Yes, dying with dignity. Is that a samurai on the battlefront dying with dignity, or what are we talking about here? So where does human dignity come from, Neitz?
Yeah, that's the great question. That's the fundamental question of the topic. So if we say that dignity comes from autonomy, that means that people who are not autonomous, they have no value, or that they have any less value. And it's the same with abortion, with the same with euthanasia. But if we say that human dignity is inherent to human species, then and why is that? Because we are all, it's something sacred in us. It's something that we are created in a God's image, and that means that it's something in us that differs us from other creatures, and that is dignity, and that is the thing that is also a fundament for equal rights, that everyone with the same dignity have the rights. And from dignity it comes that everybody have a right to life.
Well, the Bible says that the man is the pinnacle of creation. So I think the exact quote was that man was created just a little bit beneath the heavenly beings, the angels, in terms of value. And if we go down the route of the Christian worldview, there's also a saying in Luke that if one soul is saved, the heavens rejoice. So there is an immanent value that you're talking about. So why is the big, who's the opponent of all of that? Who are you against in that referendum? Who wants to destroy human dignity by assisting them dying quicker?
So the story in Slovenia started around 10 years ago, when one of the NGOs, it's called Silver Thread, actually started more publicly educate and promote and advocate for assisted dying and euthanasia. So that it goes from the crowds and then to the political sphere. And there can be a lot of motivation. I think that many people have sincere motivation, but they are not aware of the problems that they can occur. And we saw that many people, when we were having a campaign, like also in the streets and in front of universities, and you just need to, because it's very convenient for people that they don't want to suffer, which is the main question for them. It's an opt-out for suffering, and the question of suffering is, of course, very hard even for us Christians. but the solution to the problem that they were introducing into the law is not a solution for suffering. It's the elimination of the sufferer. And that's the thing that you can. We were asking those questions, people, and people, when you ask that question, um, uh, they are open to defending life, because in Slovenia there was a referendum. It was previous referendum. It was non-binding referendum in 2024, just with the European election, because the NGO I was talking about proposed a law, and it was rejected. Publicly rejected by medical association and many other NGOs and groups, and many people just oppose it categorically. And then the left-wing government decided to propose a non-binding referendum. And even though the government lost those elections, so European elections to the European Parliament, just that non-binding referendum passed, like barely passed, even though there was, like 75 to 80% support in public opinion, because there was no public debate in effect. But it's easier to support in this society. It's easier to support assisted dying, assisted suicide, or euthanasia, than being opposer of those quick solutions with tremendous effect. But because it passed, they introduced a law at the end of 2024, and it was passed in the parliament in June last year. And after that, the referendum started to occur, because there was a lot of people who just didn't get over that we are going to kill people, that physician is going to have that authority to terminate someone's life. So in September, we collected enough signatures to have a referendum in November.
And the end result was a success. Like you mentioned, it was a precedent in Europe, at the very least, that such a law was passed, for sure. And there were European media outlets that reported on that. Let me show my screen for a moment. So that's the European Conservative, with an excellent article on the subject: how Slovenian campaigners beat euthanasia, and they describe the process over there as well, the things that you talked about. And on your own website, you use the words that Slovenia chose compassion before death. Let me go back to something that you mentioned a few minutes ago, the problem of suffering. It's not only the person who is dying, who is terminally ill, who's suffering. There's also the question of people looking after him who are suffering. And someone might say, well, Neitz, you can step in my shoes and look after, for the next 10 years of my sick relative at home. You do that if you're campaigning pro-life in this particular case. What would you say to a person like that?
There was a lot of that kind of stories during the campaign, but because many physicians, the great majority of physicians were against it, and many people that were working in palliative care, and they were saying that usually people who are, before that they are terminal ill, they're not suffering the most. We are not used to, we think that we are entitled, that we don't even see suffering. And usually they say that everybody, that, physicians had, like conversation with the people, and they were saying, I had more than 10,000 patients, and nobody asked me for that. And or even just one asked. But when I asked him what is it about, I found out that there is another problem, that there's presumed burden that is actually presents the most suffering, because nobody, like we live in so individualistic society, nobody wants to be cared of, to be reliant on someone else, and that is by itself a problem, because people who are compassionate that they are suffering, that they are are having cancer, and other people are taking care of, they feel bad for them to take care of them, and that is that presumed burden is actually one of the leading reasons why people in Canada are actually choosing to die, because we just had one case that I mean that people are really, I mean, it was in Canada. It was last week or a few weeks ago. A, actually, it was involuntary euthanasia. It's a quite a scandal even for Canadian measures, that she opted for euthanasia, but after complaining of her husband. And after that, she opted out. She didn't want to be euthanized anymore. But her husband, who was caring for her and who was providing all the she wanted to go to hospice instead. But husband applied for a second medical observation, and it passed. And at the same day, she was euthanized. It's quite a scandal, but that's the thing we are talking about. The safeguards that they are promoting as a, like that people are not going to exploit the system. It's not. They're not. They're not actually they're not exceptions. They're rule. When you declare as a state that some state of that some illness, or some people that are old enough that they do not, if they are having a suicidal thoughts, that we are not fighting anymore for them. That's a clear message. It's a clear message for them that they are not valuable enough to be a part of our society. And there is also a financial aspect of it. I mean that from the part of so if you're having euthanasia, you are very it's a low cost solution for problems. Even in our law, or proponents of the law said that Canadians are actually I mean that they are not, that after euthanasia was legalized, that they drive down costs of healthcare and pensions and special care, because people are not, I mean, and also they are not. There are also many people that wants to have palliative care, or that they have special care, but they don't get it because it's not available. But mate is available. You can be executed in Canada in just a day if you want, if you have a terminal illness, or if you have because in Slovenia they were saying that it's just for terminal patients, and it was explicitly not for terminal patients only. In Canada in 2016, they had introduced euthanasia just for terminal patients. So for those who have a reasonable foreseeable death, that was the term. In Slovenian law, there was no terminal death that would be reasonably foreseeable. It was just unbearable suffering and severe illness. So that's the second. In Canada, they introduced only in 2021 that limit, and we see in Canada that the examples from Canada are are catastrophic.
Yes, it's a slippery slope. In the post-referendum note that you sent me, you use that as an anchor point. Slippery slope, and the overtone window there can shift and is shifting very quickly to include anything.
By design, by design, they have the so-called right to dignified death. They have like a tactic to start with terminal illness, because it's easier to concede to that point, as you're saying, because people are suffering and we all want to be compassionate. But the effect of the law. We have to see what is the effect, not what's the intention of the law at first. For instance, in Netherlands, they had no amendment on the law, which was in 2001. And we see that people can die just because they are sick of life in the Netherlands. Not they don't need to have an illness anymore.
Yes, on that note, let me show you, and for the sake of our viewers, this article from, let me emphasize that, 8 years ago. So the overtone window has shifted drastically and a lot since then. So we've got medically assisted, well, doctor-assisted suicide for depression, for psychiatric reasons. There's something very wrong here, Nate, to say the least.
Yeah, Netherlands is the very very the extremist part of it. I had a conversation in podcast. You can check it out. It's in English, with the Netherlands. He was a part of their committee, euthanasia committee, said there, and he reviewed all the euthanasia from 10 years. And he was proponent first of the euthanasia, and now he fights against it. Why he fights against it? Because extensions, because of the extended euthanasia laws for psychiatric patients, for depression, for anxiety, and other stuff. And what's more, they are eliminating now also kids. So it's not, he informed me that it's not called euthanasia, because it cannot be called euthanasia because there is no consent. But basically in Netherlands, you can, with parental consent, you can get rid of a baby with terminal illness.
So
And that's
there's a huge massive hypocrisy here, Nate. So in the same country, the child has a right to change their own gender. That's another euphemism. So they can go to a clinic without the parental consent and get castrated. I'm using the right terminology there. So they can get their genitalia cut off surgically without the parental consent. But if the child wants to, well, the parent can sign off on killing their child. It's a mad world we're living in. This is overtly satanic, by the way. I will use the word satanic.
I think it's a good word. I mean, it is, like if you look at the before Israelites came into the promised land, what was there? What was there in the promised land before they came there? It was child sacrifice.
Yeah.
It was homosexual wedding. I mean, homosexual and insanity of promiscuity. And that is the thing that so Israelites and as inheritance, Christians are fighting against. We are fighting against sin. We are fighting against, because we want to be free of sin, free of those attachments of basically evil.
Yeah. So nice. We got about 10 more minutes. Let's change the subject quickly. I'll share my screen. I'll show your website again. So I would like us to go over the mission statement that you've got on your website. So I'll translate into the English language. So there are 5 points. So life needs to be protected from conception to natural death. I think we talked a lot about that so far. Next on the list is that the sexes are two, men and women. What's that about? Quick comment, please.
So that's the most controversial part of our mission statement, but it's really not, you know.
It's really common sense, if you're asking me.
Yeah, just like 5 minutes ago, someone decided that you can be in the wrong body, but even though there are some, you know, like good stuff happening in America, so executive orders from Mr. Trump, and also just recently on the Constitutional Court there is a ban on so men in women's sport. But it's still a mission, because there are still, if we don't propose the alternative to that agnostic view that we are all just floating around and the bodies are materialistic, not relevant at all, you know, for our identity. We will sooner or later get again the stuff that the Charlie Kirk, for instance, fight against. So yeah, I mean, there are just two genders, there are just two sexes, and that they are different, and that we have the same dignity, but we are different. And you know, having a little kids, it's a blessing, you know.
How many did you have again? Did you say you have?
I have 3 kids, and one is in the womb, so I have 4.
I think you're working very well. Congratulate your wife on the subject of protecting human life.
Thank you. We are saving our civilization. We are fighting demography crisis of the West. So
excellent.
But yeah, what I wanted to say that kids know the difference between man and a woman, and it's not controversial at all. And we have to protect our children against those who want to say that that you can choose whatever gender you want without consequences. We have seen that that kids are butchered, that kids are taught in school and in kindergarten that you can choose whatever you want. And yes, and we can also see sexual assaults from the men that thinks that they're a woman. And as a father of 2 girls, I cannot be more concerned about that. It's also, I mean, it's also a great attack against reality. I mean, every fiber or every bone of our bodies are screaming that they're just two genders.
It's linked to the previous point. I think that's the central, in my opinion, at least this is the central mission that you've got, that life needs to be protected, because all that indoctrination, this is another word that I will use, that starting from a very young age with children, it leads to castration. So it leads to the destruction of human dignity and the body, which is part of the human, of the whole human package there is. But also it leads to psychological trauma, which can then lead to medical assisted suicide. So we're focusing strictly on life, human life. Let's package the other 3 mission statements together in your comments. So we got marriage, relationship between a man and a woman, and I'm sure we're not talking about a self-identified man or a self-identified woman.
No,
we're talking about common sense and reality.
Yes, and I think that those 5 points that we at Anchored Voices project are covering as fundamental values of the West are pivotal, are the most important ones at that very moment that needs to be defended. Because marriage, as the 3rd point you said, it's you know, like, we are having a demography crisis, and if we are not valuing marriage as a union, as a special union between a man and a woman, then we cannot expect that that people will choose that. but that's, I mean, for centuries, I really liked the once I was listening to Samuel Alito's Supreme Court justice in the United States on a Berkfield decision. He's questioning because he was asking the defenders of gay rights and gay marriages. He was asking if there, I mean, that there were some societies that didn't discriminate against gays and lesbians, but they they nevertheless recognize the special union of man and a woman for a society and for the raising of the kids. And that is one of the fronts that we are facing now also in Slovenia, because we had 3 referendums beside the assisted suicide bill on same-sex marriage, adoption to same-sex parents, so-called parents, and IVF for a single woman and lesbians. And we have already, we as voters have actually rejected those ideas. But Constitutional Court decided afterwards that there is a discrimination. And now we are having in Slovenia same-sex marriages. We have adoption in same-sex couples by same-sex couples, and just more recently, we have IVF for lesbians and single women, and some constitutional justices even suggested that our constitution is opened also for altruistic surrogacy. And that is completely when political elite is fighting against common sense and against the people who explicitly said on the referendum that they don't want that culture shift.
Yes, they're fighting against common sense, the people, and God. And I don't envy them, Nate. They're not in a good situation, to be frank. And the consequence of
but
their
that's not
actions
an excuse for us, we have to fight them. We have to fight those ideas because theoretically it's very, I mean, it's good to have that kind of discussion, but there are real victims of those ideas, and the reality is stronger than a wrong opinion. And people are suffering. Those are people that are suffering, that they need to be helped and defended. So that is one of the greatest, I would say, the role and of our organization, that we want to defend and to fight for those values that we think that it's important, and that they are a basis of society and prevent suffering.
Yes, well, as a closing statement, Nate, I would say that, well, we've got not only a God-given right to fight evil, but also the duty to fight it, and an allusion to St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, where he says that God uses the small to shame the wicked and the big, in terms of, well, in worldly view, the proud and the arrogant. So you and your organization, we with ours, we don't get the funding that these leftists do, but we get spiritual funding, which is much more powerful. So keep the good fight. Thanks for joining us, Nate. And thanks to all the viewers and listeners of the podcast.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Speak soon. Take care.